This week's Torah portion is quite familiar to me. In fact, I can recite the first 10 lines blindfolded, often in a sing-songy voice. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe b'har Sinai lemor, just like I did at my bar mitzvah in 1976. Do the math, it's fine. What I did not do at my bar mitzvah was to talk about the Torah portion. I'm not sure how I got away with it, but I said to the rabbi, everybody talks about the Torah portion. That's boring, I don't want to do that. Instead, I shared my theology, such as it was at 12. To atone for my bar mitzvah sin of dissing the Torah portion, I've sought to focus on Parshat Bahar whenever it comes up in the annual cycle. This year, I want to do things a little differently. What might I have said if I had addressed God's role in the Torah portion? Speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, God lays out rules for how the children of Israel were to farm the land they would not enter for decades. Even before we get into the specifics of these commandments, God offers the people hope for the future. They will reach the promised land. They will have land to farm. That is, a way to make a living. We who gather in worship tonight have lived through a golden era for our Jewish people, here in the United States for centuries and more recently in Israel. The difficulties and challenges, injustices, and violent anti-Semitism that we face today pale in significance to the persecution and degradation that our people endured throughout most of our history. Still, our realistic concern that the golden age we have enjoyed may be coming to the end is terrifying. Musar, Jewish ethical discipline, urges us to cultivate bitachon, trust. In the classical literature, bitachon calls for trust in God. When we experience times of trouble, even if the outcome we seek is not realized, God has a larger plan, and all will be well in the end. That's not how I usually think of God, neither at 61 nor at 12, as such a belief suggests that God is ultimately responsible for everything that happens. My theology does not hold God responsible for human wrongdoing or imagine that God overrides natural law. Still, the bitachon, the trust inherent in God's giving commandments, dependent on sovereignty that has not yet been achieved, is compelling and is borne out in our Jewish history. Our people have often had to wait a very long time for things to get better, but persistent faith and hope helped those who came before us to endure eras so much worse than our own. It's worth examining the nature of the laws God imposes on the descendants of the Israelites standing at Sinai. They must provide a Shabbat to the earth. Since an agricultural cycle is annual, not daily, the land's Shabbat would fall every 7th year rather than weekly. God demands that the people live off whatever the land produces on its own during the 7th year, not on planting and harvesting. Once again, the theological message, at least in part, is bitachon. The Israelites are asked to place sufficient trust in God to accept that they will have enough to eat in a year with neither planting nor harvest. This time, though, the message is also about control. We often believe that we hold our own fate in our hands, that our actions determine our destiny, and that our hard work and talents are sufficient to achieve our goals, at least if nobody else gets in the way. Having to let the fields lie fallow every 7th year, though, the Israelites are asked to relinquish control. They had to accept that their livelihood was outside their control. A present-day example. Not long ago, a furious argument erupted between Jewish leaders about the Gaza war. Progressive Zionists sparred with those who are more deferential to the Israeli government, with a smattering of anti-Zionists thrown in to everyone else's dismay. A moderator reminded us that nothing we said to one another in the dispute would change the outcome for a single Israeli or Palestinian. Instead, our behavior toward one another would determine our ability to work together to achieve goals that we all share. The moderators did not say, "Trust in God, who will assure that everything will be fine in Israel and Palestine." Most would have rejected that. Instead, focusing on what we can change, the impact we can have, is more productive than arguing over matters outside our control. Recognizing that what we cannot impact is critical to living a healthy and balanced life. Our portion goes on to command that every 50th year would be a jubilee, when all land in Israel would revert to its original owner. You see, in the wilderness, the territory of the Promised Land was divided more or less equally. Over time, though, some would prosper while others would fall on hard times. To survive, the latter would sell their land to the former, further enriching the prosperous and impoverishing the poor, albeit providing them with means to feed their families in the short term. The plan was to treat every land sale as a purchase of no more than the transfer of the number of years' crops until the Jubilee. That is, until the land would revert to its original owners. Even in the Bible, though, there is evidence that the Jubilee was not observed. Perhaps then this commandment was always aspirational. An economist could better explain than I. It would not work in the real world. Here, the reason is again bitachon, trust. God offers a commandment that can be fulfilled in a world that does not yet exist, including now, millennia after Sinai. Still, the mitzvah is not meaningless. Instead, its purpose may be to articulate an ideal economic equality that our human family has never come close to achieving. We are enjoined to keep working to make that dream come true. Failing that, we are commanded to keep the faith, to continue living, to make the best of the time and place into which we have been born, and to pray that those who come after us will eat the fruit of a repaired world. A biblical verse in the traditional Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after meals, reads, "I was young, and now I'm older, and I've never seen a pious person go hungry." We're enjoined to chant that verse only in a whisper, lest a poor person hear and think we're implying that all who go hungry must be sinners. Another way to think of it is that the young, immature person, like me on the precipice of turning 13, may think they have life, even God, all figured out. Maturing, though, we recognize that the dreams of youth are visions for the future, visions that may not be realized in the lifetime of our once young selves. In our own troubled times, let none of us despair, imagining that the world is coming to an end, that this time justice and righteousness will be wiped out for good, portending the end of America as we know it and the life of our Jewish people. No, God commanded Moses, let us continue to pursue, or at least to believe in a better future whenever it may come.